So as always, first and foremost, call halal Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. That's all praises to the Most High God in the name of his only begotten Son, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. I'm Officer Ayathon, SICARRI Phoenix, and today I'm going to be talking about whether or not it's too late to get circumcised if it's past the 8th day. We're going to start with the law in Genesis chapter 17, starting at verse 10. This is my covenant, which ye shall keep, between me and you and thy seed after thee. Every man-child among you shall be circumcised. So every man-child is supposed to be circumcised, right? Reading on. And ye shall circumcise the flesh of your foreskin, and it shall be a token of the covenant betwixt me and you. Now, of course, there is such a thing as circumcision of the heart. We see that in the Old and New Testament. But this is specifically talking about physical circumcision of your flesh. Verse 12. And he that is 8 days old shall be circumcised among you, every man-child in your generations. He that is born in the house or bought with money of any stranger, which is not of thy seed. So regardless of who it is, if they're of your seed or not, they're in your house, they're supposed to be circumcised, right? He that is born in thy house and he that is bought with thy money must needs be circumcised, and my covenant shall be in your flesh for an everlasting covenant. And the uncircumcised man-child, whose flesh of his foreskin is not circumcised, that soul shall be cut off from his people. He hath broken my covenant. So we read this. We're supposed to be circumcised on the 8th day. If you're not circumcised, you have broken the covenant. But is it too late to go back and get circumcised if, say, your parents didn't have it done when you were a baby, specifically at 8 days old? Well, let's go down to verse 24. Same chapter, Genesis 17 and 24. And Abraham was 90 years old and 99 years old, when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. So he was 99 years old. You got people talking about, whether they Christians or some Christian like Israelite or whoever. I don't know if Muslims do it or whatever, but there's a lot of people that speak against circumcision. And they'll say, well, you don't have to do that anymore. And besides, the law said that it has to be on the 8th day. So if you didn't get it done on the 8th day, too little, too late. As long as I still wear my fringes, have a beard, eat clean food, keep the Passover. But wait, you can't even keep the Passover if you're not circumcised. Let's get that in the law. That's Exodus 12. It's Exodus 12. And let's go to Exodus 12 and 48. And when a stranger shall sojourn with thee, and will keep the Passover of Yahweh, let all his males be circumcised, and then let him come near and keep it. And he shall be as one that is born in the land, for no uncircumcised person shall eat thereof. No uncircumcised person shall eat thereof. Next verse. One law shall be to him that is homeborn, and unto the stranger that sojourneth among you. So it's the same thing whether you were born in the land or you were born abroad. If you're not circumcised, you cannot partake in the Passover. So if you out here thinking that everything's all good, you running around uncircumcised and going to the Passover, you're going off, man. You're going against the scriptures. You're going against the scriptures. You can't do that. Now, somebody might, take what I just said or take what I just read and say, well, you kind of missing the point because, that was Abraham used as an example, who was 99. All right. There wasn't a covenant of circumcision before that. Right. He wasn't going to start the covenant with an 8-day-old baby to be circumcising other people. Right. So he had to start with a grown man. So Abraham's the exception. So if you were born and then you didn't get circumcised on the 8th day, and you're not Abraham, then it's too late. Well, let's see. Let's read the book of Joshua, chapter 5. Let's see what happened here. We're going to start at verse 2. At that time, Yahweh said unto Joshua, make thee sharp knives, and circumcise again the children of Israel the second time. See, now this is another generation. He's not recircumcising people that have already been circumcised, right? This is a new generation. And Joshua made him sharp knives and circumcised the children of Israel at the hill of the foreskins. All right. So he made these knives and he's circumcising these people at this hill, right? Verse 4. And this is the cause why Joshua did circumcise. All the people came out of Egypt that were males, even all the men of war, meaning these grown men that came out of Egypt, died in the wilderness by the way, after they came out of Egypt. Verse 5. Now all the people that came out were circumcised, but all the people that were born in the wilderness by the way as they came forth out of Egypt, them they had not circumcised. So all these grown men that left Egypt were circumcised, but the children that were born in the wilderness weren't getting circumcised. Verse 6. For the children of Israel walked 40 years in the wilderness, till all the people that were men of war, which came out of Egypt, were consumed, because they obeyed not the voice of Yahweh, unto whom Yahweh sware that he would not show them the land, which Yahweh sware unto their fathers, that he would give us, a land that floweth with milk and honey. So 40 years, these people were being born. Over 40 years, these men got consumed. All right? Because they didn't listen to the voice of Yahweh, to the voice of the Lord. Verse 7. And their children, whom he raised up in their stead. So these are not 8-day-old babies. These are people that were being raised up to replace the men that died. Them Joshua circumcised, for they were uncircumcised, because they had not circumcised them by the way. So clearly it wasn't too late to do it, because Yahweh specifically commanded that Joshua would do this. Verse 8. And it came to pass, when they had done circumcising all the people, that they abode in their places in the camp till they were whole. So they rested up until they healed up. Verse 9. And Yahweh said unto Joshua, this day have I rolled away the reproach of Egypt from off you. Wherefore the name of the place is called Gilgal unto this day. So if you don't want to get circumcised, you're teaching people not to get circumcised. You want the reproach to stay on them. That's an evil and wicked thing, man. We can't do that. Verse 10. Verse 10, going back to what we were just talking about. And the children of Israel encamped in Gilgal, and kept the Passover on the 14th day of the month at even in the plains of Jericho. So now that these men are circumcised, they're holding the Passover. They can do that now, because as we read in Exodus, you can't keep Passover if you're not circumcised. So I should be able to close this book right now, because we just went to the Torah and Tanakh and proved that you have to be circumcised in the flesh, even if your parents missed the date. All right? But what about Paul? I know that's what everybody's going to say. What about Paul? Paul said some things. Let's see something about Paul. All right? Those in the know. We're going to the book of Acts in the 21st chapter. Acts 21. We're going to read from 18. And the day following, Paul went in with us unto James, and all the elders were present. And when he had saluted them, he declared particularly what things God had wrought among the Gentiles by his ministry. And when they heard it, they glorified Yahweh and said unto him, Thou seest, brother, how many thousands of Jews there are which believe, and they are all zealous of the law. And they are informed of thee, that thou teachest all the Jews which are among the Gentiles to forsake Moses, saying that they ought not to circumcise their children, neither to walk after the customs. So the same thing people are bringing up today about Paul, they were saying about Paul back then. But the people today don't ever bring up Acts 21. All right? So we're going to keep reading. Because the charge has been laid on Paul that you're teaching people not to keep the laws, not to circumcise their children, right? Verse 22. What is it therefore? The multitude must needs come together, for they will hear that thou art come. Do therefore this that we say to thee. We have 4 men which have a vow on them. Them take and purify thyself with them, and be at charges with them, that they may shave their heads, and all may know that those things whereof they were informed concerning thee are nothing, but that thou thyself also walkest orderly and keepest the law. The vow that they're talking about is the vow of the Nazarite. When it's completed, there are certain steps you have to take, including shaving your head off and making the sacrifice. So Paul is going along with these men to do this thing, to show everybody that he himself does keep the law of Moses, contrary to what people would like to say. All right? So you can't use Paul to say, oh, well, I don't have to get circumcised anymore. Even if you want to go someplace where Paul's speaking about circumcision, that's not the law. All right? The law is the law. If you're not getting it from the Torah or from Yahushai's own mouth, then you're dealing with some kind of commentary or something like that, right? Paul is easily misunderstood. And when you take everything in total context and you read the Bible through and through, and you don't just eisegete one little thing, you can see that circumcision is still very necessary, all right? It is one of the laws, and you have to keep it. And if you're not keeping it, you're not in the covenant. And if you're not in the covenant, you have no business at these functions that we go to, the Passovers and so forth. And don't even try to think about including yourself in the new covenant, because the new covenant was for those that were part of the old covenant. Right? So let's give Yahushua the final word on this. We're gonna go to Matthew. We're gonna go to Matthew 5, just in case anybody had any confusion left. Matthew 5:19. Red letter. Whosoever therefore shall break one of these least commandments and shall teach men so, he shall be called the least in the kingdom of heaven. But whosoever shall do and teach them, the same shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. And that is not a man's opinion expounding on something that's deeper in the Bible. This is red letter. This is law pursuant to Deuteronomy 18:18. All right? So with that, get yourself circumcised. Teach the men to get circumcised if they're not circumcised already. Make it happen some kind of way, because it's your duty to keep the Most High God's commandments and to fear him.